right, welcome everybody. Happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are good. It's been a minute since I have not gone live, but here I am. So today, I had the pleasure to introduce you, Victor Williams. I'm gonna share some of his accolades and what he has done or continue to doing, and then we'll get to see his face and let's discuss and some question that I have for him. So Victor, he is an internationally renowned and respected human trafficking advocate. He's also retired from law enforcement with over 34 years of domestic and international experience. In 1991, he joined the U.S. Customs Service, which later became the Department of Homeland Security. In February 2011, he was assigned to the DHS Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent in charge of Miami's Office Human Trafficking Group. In 2012, he was appointed a coordinator for the South Florida Human Trafficking Task Force until his retirement in January 1st, 2018. In 2022, he launched his Quest to Freedom organization, which we'll be talking more in detail later. Also, after his retirement, he was recruited as a security consultant for the Atlanta Hawks basketball team and later appointed as a coordinator for the Georgia Coalition to Combat Human Trafficking, the state's first law enforcement based human trafficking coalition addressing all forms of human trafficking in the state. He's also the president and founder of Victor B. Williams Consulting, LLC, and serves as the vice chair of the Miami-Dade County Human Trafficking Coalition. He is an 8.5 year veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard and earned a bachelor's degree from Barry University in Miami, Florida. And in his spare time, he enjoys golfing, traveling, watching good movies, and spending time with his adult daughter. So let me bring him on the stage. Victor, what's up, brother?
Hey man, I gotta get you the new bio sheet.
Hey, it's what I saw on the website.
Oh man, I gotta scrub that one. We gotta update it.
All right. Well, I guess this is the time where you can update on some things.
Yeah.
I know
Well,
from you based on that. Well, great to see you, man. How's everything?
it's great, dude, and great to be here. And thank you for the opportunity to share important information about human trafficking.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I'm glad that I have met you. It's funny because 2 months in January, um, I was at an event. Well, we both were at an event in South Florida, and what is it in South Broward College, and you
Yeah.
were one of the panelists. And my mother-in-law, she was, oh yeah, I know him, this and that, and that's because of another event that I don't know if you actually went to the Sisters of Vengeance when they were filming down in Miami Beach. I don't know if you actually got to go.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually in the movie. I'm one of the
Okay, well,
people.
there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she when she saw the flyer, she sent it to me, and I was gonna go, but things got canceled, and then I'm like, man, I can't go. I can't go for the next one. That's how she told me about you. And it's funny how I ran into you the second time, and then running into you 2 weeks ago at the barbershop speaks with Jeff Noel, and that was awesome to connect with you
Yeah.
again. So
Oh
it's a
yeah,
pleasure.
that was cool.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure. It was a pleasure. So, as the audience are watching or will be watching, this is a very sensitive topic, a very serious topic that we're going to be talking about to spread more awareness because it's needed, and just even more than just the awareness, just action and whatnot. So, just based on information that I shared about who you are, what you have done, or any updates. So, pretty much what? Tell us your background. Where were you born, raised? What's your ethnicity? What's your family life look like?
Wow. All right. So I was born in Virginia,
Oh,
Norfolk, Virginia, raised in a country town called Chesapeake. I mean, we're talking about country. We're talking like we were poor, but I never went hungry. We had a garden. Like I went hunting. Like it's funny you asked that question because with all the technology, I'm like, man, if the power ever went out, what would people do? People don't know how to fish. People don't know how to hunt. How would they live? Do they know how to survive? But I grew up like that. I'm talking outhouse. We had an outhouse. So to be where I am today, I never saw this coming. But for me, my life has just been about chasing dreams and goals, and it just never stops growing. So when I graduated high school in Northern Virginia, I went into the Coast Guard, and I joined the Coast Guard November '82. I graduated high school in '82. So yeah, people, next month I'll be 60 years old.
Oh my goodness, you do not
Yeah.
look 60.
Hey man, I live in Florida. Is that Florida humidity in the air, keep the skin soft, whatever,
And like they say, black don't crack.
It's cracking, you just can't see it yet, So I went into the Coast Guard. My first duty station was Puerto Rico, and after that, I never wanted to live in a cold environment again. But I did, and in 1990 was the year that I came to Miami chasing a dream to drive go fast boats for U.S. Customs. So I think in my whole life, I learned that everything we want when we want it, we don't always get when we want it, but we get it when we're ready when we're ready for it. Yeah. So, my 8 years in the Coast Guard, the first 4 years I did, and then the other 4 years, it was like trying to get out. I wanted to go with the Coast Guard. And then that last year, either I would have to get out or re-enlist for another 4 years. But like I said, man, timing was perfect. I came here to Miami at the Miami Beach Coast Guard station. And that moment, coming down here to chase a dream to drive go fast boats for Customs, that everything came true, got the job with Customs. And once I got the job with Customs, I went to Barry, got a degree. And once I got my degree in 2000, I became a special agent with Homeland Security. I mean, with Customs. It was still Customs then. And I went to Atlanta in 2000 as a Customs agent, came back to Miami in 2005 as a Homeland Security agent after 9/11. And then stayed here from 2005 until I retired in 2018. I spent most of my adult life, I would say, here in Miami. When I retired in 2018, the last 8 years of my career with Homeland, I worked human trafficking cases, and it changed me as a human being. And when I teach and talk about human trafficking, I talk about it and teach it from a learned experience, not from a victim's experience, but a person who's worked with victims and dedicated my time and learnings to this issue. So when I talk about human trafficking, I always say, if most men knew what I know and decided to act on it, we can change this in a snap, When I retired in 2018, I worked with an organization called Erase Child Trafficking, where we traveled around the country, educating police departments. I had this opportunity with the Atlanta Hawks. I did 2 years team security with the Atlanta Hawks, which were like an amazing experience, but it wasn't really feeding my soul. And then when I was leaving the Hawks to come back to Miami, another kind of like spiritual thing happened when the state of Georgia got funding for human trafficking, and I became the trafficking coordinator for the state of Georgia. I don't even think they interviewed nobody but me. I think once I did the interview, it was like, "We want you," that was it. And so I did that for a year, and that was during COVID, and being in Atlanta during COVID, it was like really depressing, and especially during the winter time. And I was like, man, I just wanted to come back to Miami. I always loved Miami. I love, the weather, and so came back to Miami in August of 2021. Wasn't really doing much. And then in April of 2022, I heard this story about a father who took his 50-year-old daughter to, anybody knows, to a Dallas Mavericks game. And she went to the bathroom, and the next time he saw his daughter was 10 days later when they were rescuing her from a hotel in Oklahoma being sold for sex. So I contacted the ESPN writer who wrote the story, who connected me with the family lawyer, who connected me with the guy that found her. It wasn't the police that found her. It was this guy that found her by using her photograph and searching all these these sex cell, porn sites, whatever people go. He found one site real that she was out of a hotel. And then that same year, 2022, the NBA security conference was held here before the season started. And I reached out to my NBA contacts and did a presentation for the NBA conference, which really gave me new energy to like, Vic, it's time to really get back into this fight. You know, it's my passion. It's my purpose in life. I really feel that. But before I started my organization, November of 2022, I had to do my own work. I had to go inside, bro. I had to, you know, clean up my traumas. I had to examine myself. I had to, you know, go in. So I made a lot of life changes.
Right.
And I made those changes, and then everything just fell in place, you know. Quest of Freedom, I know you said I started in 20. Technically I did, but what happened when I started Quest of Freedom, I bought the domain when I retired in 2018. But what happened after I did that inner work in November of 2022, that like, all right, Vic, get back in the game. I started Quest of Freedom as an LLC and realized, okay, we're not an LLC, we're a nonprofit. So I had to wait till January 3rd, 2023. That's when Florida Corporation office opened to rename, you know, Quest of Freedom Inc. Quest of Freedom LLC. And so we started 2023. By March of 2023, I had my 501 C3 approved. And ever since then, it's really been trying to build the foundations, build the inner workings of the organization. And now, you know, we're a lot closer than where we were. And now it's about what we do. We educate people on this issue of human trafficking from a cultural standpoint. It's the cultural, you know, it's culture that made human trafficking happen, and it's culture that perpetuates the problem. And I tell people, you know, there was a pre-human trafficking Vic Williams that was raised as a male in America that did a lot of dumb things, right? And like I say, when I started working human trafficking, I realized like, wow, this is not good, and it changed me, you know. And so, you know, that's what we do. We educate people that it resonates with them. We're trying to change this culture. And then one of the other things that we're shooting for is to raise enough money to register Quest of Freedom with the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and be that organization that fill gaps. For instance, as an agent, a federal agent with Homeland, as a coordinator with the state of Georgia, these two government entities, whenever we came across a victim of human trafficking, if we didn't have a home or a place to put them right away, we were kind of like stuck. And that's the worst situation to be in, to convince someone in such a horrible place that you can help them. And then they trust you and they see you for help, and you ain't got nothing, bro. I'll tell you, that wasn't good. And so it's filling those gaps. You know, we've come a long way in this business. There's a lot of organizations providing different services. Sometimes all the beds are filled. Sometimes, places are shutting down because everybody is nonprofits and everybody is shooting for funding. And when I started this, my board and everybody was talking about the competition. And I was like, I'm not in competition with everybody. This organization doesn't put food on my table, and it doesn't put a roof over my head because I retired. I have a pension for that. But I know that there's a need for this services to be able, when you find a victim and their immediate needs, they may need a hotel because law enforcement can't get them to a service provider. Right. So they need a hotel for a day, 2 or a week. They need food. They need maybe a bus ticket or plane ticket homes. They need an Uber ride. We want to really be that organization to fill those gaps for those victims. And then the last thing that we do is partner. Nobody works in this space alone. So I mean, I could go into a whole bunch of other details, but I don't know how long the show is. So. That's a real cut and dirty for where we are right now.
Right, right. Well, good stuff. It's good that we need to know this information, right? So, talking about human trafficking or human sex trafficking, there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of kinds of trafficking.
Right.
Can you just tell me what are some of other type of trafficking that exists besides human sex trafficking, which is really what we're focusing on, but trafficking in general?
So I wanna make sure your audience really understands. So we didn't get our human trafficking laws until the year 2000, right?
Wow.
So in the year 2000, the first human trafficking laws hit the books in the United States, and it started because the United Nations got all the countries in Palermo, Italy, and charged all countries to address this issue that's been going on forever, thousands of years, right? And so in the laws, I'm going to define what human trafficking is. There are three elements that make up human trafficking. I can't have a human trafficking case unless I have one of these three elements. And those elements are force, fraud, and coercion. Force, I beat you to make you do what I want you to do. Coercion is the threat of hurting you, somebody you love, or kicking you out the house, or not feeding you. So I tell people, if you have a need, and that need becomes a desperation, be careful because people can exploit you, right? And then the other one is fraud. Fraud is the weakest of the three elements. Hey, come to Miami, be a model. Once you get here, now they use force or coercion to keep you here, right? So, but the thing with those three elements is the elements only apply to adults. If you're a child under the age of 18 and you're being commercially sexually exploited, you are a victim. So when I talk about changing culture, let me tell you how hard it is to change culture. So when that law came out in 2000, it took the state of Florida 16 years to finally pass a law that says no more arresting kids under the age of 18 for prostitution. 16 years.
Wow.
It took the state of Georgia 19 years. And there might even be states out there arresting underage kids when the federal law says they are victims, right? So that's telling you like why, because we couldn't get out of our way of cultures and how it was done, right? So now that explains the definition. You gotta have one. Now, when we put our laws together, we had the three P's. How do we address this? We wanted to prevent it. We wanted to protect victims, and we wanted to prosecute, perpetrators. So those were the three P's. And so, where we are now, we have four P's. The fourth P is not part of the law, but the fourth P is what I talked about a few minutes ago, is partnerships. Look, human trafficking is one of those things we're not going to arrest our way out of, right? This is going to take cultural change. And I honestly believe we can do it. Now, when you ask the question, what types of trafficking, because you're right, everybody just thinks it's sex trafficking. There are four types of trafficking. There's sex trafficking, and I'm going to come to the last one, I'll talk a bit more about. There's sex trafficking. There's servitude and debt bonds. There's organ trafficking, and the last one is labor trafficking. The reason why I save labor trafficking for last is because labor trafficking is 60 to 70% of all trafficking, right? And so when we talk about labor trafficking, because you may have somebody in your audience that say, hey, I don't go to strip clubs and I don't buy sex workers. Why do I need to know about human trafficking? Because if you own a cell phone and you can buy food and you can buy clothes, you have a minimum of 40 to 60 slaves working for you. No one gets out of, being part of this problem, right? This is a world problem and we're all involved. I used to say we're all responsible, but we're all involved, right? So the question is, knowing what you know, what do you do about that, right? And the word trafficking confused a lot of people. Oh, where are people coming from? You do not have to have a movement to have a trafficking case. You could be born in Miami and trafficked.
Mhm.
The
Right.
majority of sex trafficking victims in the United States are United States citizens because we've had prostitution and pimping in this country forever.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of labor trafficking victims come from another country because a lot of times, and if you live in Miami, and I probably would say anywhere in the state of Florida, you probably know someone that got document issues, right? And the question is, are they being exploited? And why this is such good information for your audience. Some of the people that may be listening to this may have document issues. And people could be exploiting that. Hey, if you don't work these extra hours, I'm going to turn you in. If you don't take this less pay, I'm going to turn you in. If you don't have sex with me, I'm going to turn you in. Your coworker, like, you're going to give me half your check. I mean, people that are caught up with not being documented in this country, they're in a vulnerable state. And it's important for them to know this information because if you fit that bill and people are exploiting you and making and threatening to turn you into Homeland Security unless you do something,
Mm-hmm.
you have rights. Just because you're undocumented doesn't mean you don't have rights. So if you're in that situation, you would get you and law enforcement recognize you as a labor trafficking victim. You get 2 years. You get what we call continuing presence. It
Mm-hmm.
gives you 2 years of legal status in the country plus work authorization.
Hmm.
And once you qualify for what we call CP, continuing presence,
Right.
you then somewhat qualify for the T visa, which is a trafficking visa. Now, outside of trafficking, if you are undocumented in this country and you are a victim of a crime, rape, domestic violence, somebody rob you, you qualify for the U visa, which is a little bit different than the T visa. So I think it's important for your audience to know this, whether they know people that are undocumented, to let these people know that just because you're having this situation, you do have rights here. No one has the right to exploit you. And if you're being exploited, try to document as much of that evidence as you can, record it, write it down, whatever you can do. So when you go to police, or you can call our organization. We vet that kind of information. And from my experiences, I'll know whether you're a victim or not. And there's stages that we can go through. I'm helping 8 right now it's 8. It's a lot more in the country, but 8 have been courageous enough to come forward. Bahamian citizens who've been tricked to come over here using their visitor's visa.
Wow.
You're not allowed to work on your visitor's visa, but they've been told, oh yeah, come over here. And they're coming over here filling hotel staffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
After COVID, a lot of jobs like that went away. So they need people working. So they're tricking these people to come over on a visitor's visa. And they get here and they put them to work right away. But then they trick them to believe that they're going to apply for their permanent status. And it never happens. So it's all kind of ways things are happening. I helped a father help get his 17-year-old daughter back who was missing and was being sold online for sex in West Palm Beach, in that rich area, West Palm Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we got her back in 2 days after we forwarded that information to law enforcement contacts.
Wow. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Obviously, I'm speaking it more on your behalf than me because you're the one experienced and been working with this for many years. Me, I really didn't get into the topic of sex trafficking or knowing human trafficking, what entails. 4.5 years ago when I started working for a nonprofit, going through trainings with Christie House and talking about, signs and whatnot. And it is now more than ever, even after seeing the Sound of Freedom movie, that I started to feel more like I get more angry and I get more sensitive when I hear these stories and when I look at the news and whatnot. And especially that I'm a father of, one son and a girl coming in 2 more months.
Yeah.
Just I'm more sensitive now, and it's just I'm getting more involved and want to be more involved in whatever way I can, and I want to keep spreading the awareness because people need to know, like, we live in Miami, it's happening in our own backyard and we don't even realize it.
Florida, Florida's the #3 state in the country.
In the country.
California is 1, Texas is 2, Florida's #3, and Miami is the #1 city in the state of Florida. And right now, they're #5 in the country. Houston is #1 right now.
Yeah, the border.
The border, yeah. And you know what makes those 3 states the top 3 is the one thing that they all have in common outside of the size of the state. They all have big agriculture.
Oh yeah.
Right? So a lot of this trafficking here is labor trafficking.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So within human trafficking, what are some signs to look for?
Well, you know, in asking that question, I tell people we're all somewhat, and not to use the word responsible, but we're all involved, right? And it takes really a change within us all because it's so cultured that, you know, if I was doing a PowerPoint presentation for you right now, there's a part where if I could see your audience, I would ask your audience, how many of you dressed up for Halloween? How many of you dressed up as a pimp or a prostitute for Halloween? How many of you have ever attended a pimps and hoe party? And, you know, when I do this in large audience, sometimes I get alligator arms, you know. That next slide after asking that question is a picture of me, right? And because, again, I talk about this from my learned experiences that we've glorified this stuff, right? You know, so I tell parents, what are some of the signs? Like if you got your kid coming home with new cell phones, like that movie, Sister of Vengeance, right? That I was working on. And at the end of that movie, we had what we call a candlelight vigil, and I posted a young lady, a missing child, on the board that night, because when I got the information, she was a kid in Miami Gardens. Her mom, the things that we teach parents to look for, everything was there. The daughter had a cell phone that the parents didn't buy. They took the cell phone and they were able to see some of the message in there. The kid was coming home with different things. The attitude had changed. You know, you get a kid making straight A's and all of a sudden they're not doing well. Their attitude is changing. Coach, the first thing we do is like, what's wrong with you? Well, we really should be asking, what happened, right?
Yeah.
The things I tell parents, you need to create an environment and a relationship with your kids that they can always trust to come talk to you. That means we have to change. In order for us to defeat this thing on human trafficking, which is the #1 crime in the world, requires a change in all of us, right? And I tell parents, if you're not dealing with your trauma issues, then you're passing them on to your kids. Unresolved trauma creates the vulnerability that traffickers are out there lurking for, right? Kids are vulnerable just being a child. We add our crap to our child because we haven't dealt with our crap, that makes them even more vulnerable. So signs of changing attitude, changing grades, change in, you know, bringing stuff home, looking at your friends, all these things that in your gut, you're like, what's going on with Junior? What's going on with, you know, whatever. Trust that and start asking son, daughter, what happened? You know, anything going on? No secrets. Your kids, there's no secrets between anybody. We have to change our culture and how we were raised, in the sense, if we want to create that environment for our kids to talk to us about things, we can't be reacting when they tell us stuff that we don't like or we think may be dangerous, or, you know, we have to change how we communicate. I tell parents, stop lying to your kids and holding them to standards that you don't even hold. You know, you didn't do it as a kid. Children are gonna make mistakes. That's a part of life. And instead of beating your kids up over it, we need to help them understand the lesson in those mistakes. You know, so when instead of like calling them stupid and dumb and names and yelling at them and screaming, you know, all that is adding trauma and distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to be, oh, you made a mistake. Oh man, you all right? What did you learn from that? Let's talk about that mistake. It ain't the time to yell and beat your kid. It's the
Right.
time to talk about it.
Right. Right.
These are lessons, right?
Yeah. And from experience, I know what that's like personally, growing up with my mom or my parents, mostly my mom, how she would react when I would, do things and whatnot. But even working in the schools with these middle schools and high school students, most of them Caribbeans, and a lot of them tell me like, I wish I could talk to my mom or I wish I could talk to my dad. I just don't feel comfortable because I feel like anything I say is a sign of disrespect. Like I can't ask questions or I can't do this. So they open up to me or to one of our facilitators that, because they're really the only person that they can talk to. And it's only for like an hour and a half, a day a week for 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? And it just, they don't know where to go. Their parents, it's not trusted. Now, I'm not saying every child is perfect, and I'm not saying, and there are parents who does their job, and some kids that just still don't want to talk. But then I'm talking to those that, like you said, are always reactionary. Instead of hammering down because they messed up or they got pregnant at 16. Yes, I mean I'm not. I don't have a daughter that age yet, but I can only imagine, the fear or whatever goes through my mind. But if we could take a step back and like we not react that way, you're gonna push them away.
Exactly. And I'm glad, because I tell kids, I say, look, if you can't talk to your parents, you got to find one or two adults that you trust, because where do they go if they can't talk to their parents? And, and parents think they're doing, well, I was raised this way, blah. Okay, everything is great till your kid is missing. Now you're wishing, oh my God, I wish I had done something different. It's time to start doing something different. It's time to start learning something different. If you don't have that relationship with your child is in danger. And nobody cares until they're actually gone. And then they're like, oh Lord, help me, help me. No, man, this is serious stuff. It's never too late to change and create that environment. It's never too late to be honest with yourself. It's never too late to address your issues. Yeah. If we're not addressing our issues, we're passing them on. And like I know we had a chat and in the last time we were in the barbershop speak, and I was talking about, what's missing a lot of times is we need to revamp or re-educate, redefine the word love, right? I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, but the definition of love from the Bible is a good start of what love is, because what parents have to understand is that our brains don't reach maturity it reached maturity somewhere between the ages of 24 and 30. That means my frontal lobe is not fully developed yet, right?
Right.
And so what happens before that, most of the things that I'm dealing with in life, and I'm dealing with them because of how it makes me feel. So if I'm doing it, I'm mostly reacting to life. I'm not responding to life. I'm reacting to life. And if we're reacting to life, that's all emotional. So with parents knowing that tool, some parents can get frustrated trying to educate their kids why this and this. Understand that your kid may not get it here. They may act like it. They may look like it, but they're not. Their frontal lobe have not fully developed. And if we're beating them up with trauma, we're delaying that development. Wow. If we're not loving them, if we're not, just giving them a space to be and just nourish them, that's how you get that frontal lobe developed quicker, and then they start understanding. But if we're constantly abusing verbally, tell them they ain't gonna be worth nothing, yelling at them and all this, we are delaying that.
Right.
And so you're making it worse for your kids when you're thinking you're helping them because how you were raised,
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Vulnerability. And that's the thing though, when we're letting our kids out like that and they're vulnerable, somebody's gonna come along, a trafficker or somebody who's trying to recruit.
Right.
They're gonna make believe that they care about them by having a
Exactly.
conversation with them, and in the other person's mind, the vulnerable child or the vulnerable person in their mind is like, oh wow, like somebody finally cares about me. I don't have this at home, and
Yeah,
that's how the grooming starts, and
exactly.
boom, they
Yeah,
get trapped. You know what
exactly.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. So talking about um trafficking, sex trafficking, what is the common age for young girls and boys to be trafficked?
So it's very tough because I've been at a mini forum for the last 3 days, and people from all over the world was at that forum. And when we talk about statistics, um, how California is one, Texas two, we get it from an organization called Polaris Project. You can go to polarisproject.org. And they base those statistics off of the calls that come into the hotline. Polaris Project monitor the national hotline. And one of the things that I've been pushing for years is to have human trafficking on a police report. If I want to know how many robberies are in a community, because it's on a police report, electronic, I can go in, punch up a button, and go, oh, statistics are up in robberies, statistics are down.
Hmm.
For human trafficking, I have to read that report of what happened to determine. And the reason why we need it on a police report more than just statistics,
Mhm.
we need it because officers don't understand human trafficking
Mhm.
because it's so cultured, which is a mostly male, dominated organization. You ask an officer, what are the elements of human trafficking? They're not going to be able to tell you that, the majority of them, unless they're part of the human trafficking unit, right? And so when you ask that number, for years, we've been using a number, girls as young as 12, boys as young as 11. Yes, boys are trafficked. So, there's a lot going on that we should be really so far advanced. But when you work in this space, any progress is better than no progress, right? So
Right.
we've been making progress, but yeah, those are the statistics, man, But I've seen kids trafficked, infant.
Infants.
Yeah, because one thing that a lot of trafficking usually happens from somebody and there's familiar trafficking. I've worked with many victims that it was the family trafficking them.
So that's what I was actually going to mention next, because a lot of people think when they hear trafficking, what we hear, we see it based on what we see in movies.
Right.
Not that what happens in movies doesn't happen in real life, but a lot of them it's just not exactly like that. A lot of people think, oh, it's just straight up kidnapping, you random person kidnap, which can and does happen, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But is
yeah.
what you're bringing up. It's someone in the family, an uncle, someone who's a close friend of the family that's involved in a trafficking ring. I want you to touch on that because people think it's just random kidnapping. It's
Well,
really not for the most part.
yeah, I tell people, man, trafficking victims and the trafficker are created in homes all around the world from all of the traumas that is given to these kids. So the trafficker is created in the homes too, right? And if we don't start asking the questions why and diving into this stuff, this is always going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go back to educating, redefining what love is, right? When we talk about the brains maturing between the ages of 24 and 30, and everything is emotion, and depending on the family that you grow up in, I could have these deep emotions for someone and calling it love when that person is beating me,
Right.
disrespecting me, raping me, selling me. Oh, I love them. They love me. I've seen relationships where wives said to husband, "You don't love me. Why? Because I can do whatever, and you don't yell and scream at me, and you don't beat me." Because we're shaping the culture in your mind from the moment a child is born to they're 7. We're programming them, and it'd be great if that was a cultural thing that we use for good and say, "Wow, from the ages of 0 to 7, I can program my kid to read 5 different languages. I can program them to understand what love is, not just feelings, but what it means physically." So when you give a kid love, you take away the insecurities. When you give a kid love, they can walk outside that door. They're not looking to belong to the cool group. They don't care what you think about them. You know, they can stand on that island and be their own person. And they get to set boundaries where you can't speak to me that way. You can't treat me that way. And when a kid walks out that door knowing what love is physically to themselves and loving themselves, you take away so many of their vulnerabilities.
Right.
Because remember, the vulnerability is what traffickers are looking. And it's been said that kid that has that kind of demeanor, when they get approached, like, yeah, I'm good. Not like, oh, yeah, I need help. You know, traffickers ain't messing with them. Because there's more of them. That's so much easier to like, hey, be nice. Hey, you nice? Yeah, I'm nice. And all of a sudden, suck you in.
Yeah.
I was talking to some, you know, before we came on, I was telling you I was at a middle school today. And, you know, we have to be very careful. I didn't want to get too deep into human trafficking. But one of the things I talked about, I said, how many of you kids have internet? They all raised their hands. How many of you play games on it? They were like, oh, yeah. How many of you are talking to these people at 10 and 11? A couple of them was like, yeah, talk a couple times. Now, I didn't expect to get this, and I didn't get into this, because I get this from high schoolers, though. How many of you have gone out and met these people that you met online, and they raised their hands? Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, wow. So parents, wake up. And, you know, they used to say, well, there ain't no book or manual on how to raise a kid. Yeah, there are a lot of them. And, you know, but the basic one is clean up your mess. Deal with your trauma. Stop running from them. It's okay to not be okay. One of the things I talk to the kids about to give them some of that strength, I said, we know hurt people, right? They go, yeah. I say, well, when that bully comes in and starts saying bad words to you, words don't kill you. You know, they're words. And I want you to think about it as if, oh, that bully is hurting today. I ain't gonna let that bully hurt me because of words. You know, that's a grown-up thing that we should do. We live, you know, it's a cultural thing that if I say something negative to somebody, oh, I get to say something negative back. No, all you've done is given me control over you.
Oh yeah, I tell them
over words, over words, you know. And we did this because I do a behavior management course with a couple of doctors, and we did a presentation at the Miami-Dade County Police Academy. So we got 17 or so officers in there, trainers, and I asked, how many of you know that more law enforcement people are killing themselves than dying in the line of duty? Only a few of them raised their hands. And I say, well, the other thing is this. When I was an agent, what kept me safe were my tactics, not words. So we know that when we see a lot of bad policing, it's because they are reacting. They're not responding. Like when you walk past a cop, I hate cops, which is my First Amendment right, speak. And then the cop, hey, what do you mean you hate cops? I go out, and now you're so focused on what I said and arguing with me back that now your tunnel vision, you just lost your tactics. And I saw something the other day is that if we can't control our emotions, we're in trouble.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so we think about it. Am I reacting or am I responding? Because sometimes I don't have to give people power. I'm living from the inside out, where I say, there's nothing outside of me that's going to make me feel a certain way about myself or take away my day. If I wake up having a lovely day and somebody wants to be a jerk, I'm like, man, that guy's having a bad day, and keep it moving.
Right.
Imagine our culture like that. We got road rage, and I'm telling you, it takes work to do that, because when you're driving in this Miami traffic, that's where the real practice come in for me, because I know I've made progress. Because before,
right. And I tell my youth that when we have a lesson that we speak on refusal skills, and we have a little scenario that they can act out and all that. And I tell them, and I ask, let's say, for example, me, pretend I'm one of your classmates, I'm a student just like you, and we don't really clash, we don't really vibe like that, and I go up to you and I start cussing you out, talking about your mom or whatever. Like, what are you gonna do? And sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm gonna f you up, or I'm gonna punch you in the face, this and that. And I'm like, you have the right, because if you want to do that, that's your decision. But two things, you will get in trouble mostly because you physically assaulted me. All I just said was words. Yeah, I disrespected you. All I said was words. And then two, why go down to my level? You know what I'm saying? Don't give me, because that's what people want. They want your attention. They want you to react, and they be like, to be in control. You know what I'm saying? And I tell them, especially living in Miami, as I'm getting older, I'm like, I don't get involved with any petty arguments with anybody, because the way. So listen, I do Uber 4 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
3 in the morning, in Miami,
Picking up the drunk.
a lot of different people.
Yeah.
In my mind, the way I program my mind everywhere I go, whether it's doing Uber, whether even if I go into a school or a supermarket, I train myself that this person has a weapon. So if they were to argue with me, or like, I have to be wise and not really, argue back or because I can try to be the big dog and all of a sudden he pulls a gun on me and I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's all about controlling the emotions and knowing when to say something or not. So that is a clear thing.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, just because somebody says something bad to you, that's not a defense in a courtroom that you beat him up because he called your name.
Yeah.
We grew up in a culture. I'm an African American. The only reason why the N-word hurts so much because we give it power.
Mm.
So why wouldn't they say it if they want to hurt us? Because oh God, you called me the N-word. Oh my God. You just give them so much power. You know what I mean?
Right.
Imagine if we reframe that. Where do they go with it?
Mm-hmm.
But when we grow up like that, I grew up in the country. Oh, somebody talk about your mama, you gotta fight. That's culture. That's ridiculous.
Right.
We have to change that. A lot of people are in jail. A lot of lives ruined because of words. Oh, I'm a man. You can't let him disrespect you. What are you talking about? They're words. Mm-hmm. You know what the real guy is? The real guy is the courage to show those are words, man. I'm better than that.
Right.
Now, I will agree with you that we all have the right when somebody is physically attacking us to protect ourselves. But words,
right?
You call me a name and I knock you out and they call the police, who's going to jail? Mm-hmm. Not the person that called me the name.
Exactly.
So we got to start reframing that. We have to be better than that. But we're so down in a hole. But we're not even having this discussion. People like you're having a discussion with kids, and I'm like, that's great. But we are not having enough of these discussions in the communities, in the church, because you know why? Because a lot of us believe, like, you say something bad about me, I get to say something back. In the church, look what kind of dress. Why are you worried about my dress? And like, what? Like, really? that just shows you, man, where it comes back to me. Everything in life starts with us. Mm. We can't give love if we don't have love. We can't receive love if we don't know what it is. Everything that we see bad in other people is because it's in us. Right?
Right.
We got that same venom in us. And that's my fight. That's my message. People, look in the mirror. Deal with yourself. Start with you and then let it spread out. If everybody did that, you deal with your kids. You're giving your kids love. You're giving them this positive way to live and think and be, and in that community. But that's not the communities we're living in.
Yeah.
Because everybody is hurting and nobody's addressing the pain.
That's real. That's real. So I want to talk about pornography. Yeah. So we know pornography is another $1 billion entity, unfortunately legal in America and what other countries. Is pornography linked with sex trafficking, and how?
It is. What's that? Pornhub. had to pay out millions to people that were trafficked on that site. And to be honest with you, you know, growing up over time, you know, that's been a part of my life. You know, it's the cool thing. Watch porn. Something else you have to funnel out and ask yourself, is it really worth, you know, whatever you're going through to invest in that? Especially now, people don't have to pay for it. It's free.
You just go on the internet and type in the website and boom, you're there.
I mean, we're so, like, I don't, you know, that's a tough area for me because I'm not an expert in that space of psychology to understand, because I'm not a perfect human being in that right of, like I said, you know, for me, everything's been a process. And I'll tell you, in this program that I was in the last 3 days, it's given me some more insight to think about that in a whole. But to answer your question, porn is part of the problem. You know, it is, especially when kids are getting it way too young, even before the frontal lobe is developed, right? So, you know, growing up, we grew up, you know, we had magazines we would find around, you know, but, you know, a friend of mine, 7-year-old son, came home, Mom, what's sex? Oh, no, you can't talk this time of day, this time, 21st century. And one of my friends that's a sexologist, her professor did a study on when is the right time to talk to your kid about sex. And they did a study between America and Sweden, right? So the reason why parents have a tough time talking to their kids about sex is because we only think about sex as intercourse. So why should my 5-year-old know about intercourse? Should my 5-year-old start learning about his feelings? Should my 5-year-old should know, like, what your private parts are called, the proper name, not your choo-choo train, not your tunnel, by calling it by its real name? Should we stop talking to our kids like babies and talk to them like adults, you know, and deal with their emotions? Right. You know, when I was raised up, when I was coming up, I was told we were dropped off by a stork. Wow. You know, when kids in Sweden draw pictures of family, they're drawing these beautiful pictures. We start off, if you touch that, you're gonna go blind. If you do that, bad things are gonna happen. So why do we have all these sexual issues in this country? Because we ain't being real. We're not being honest, and we're not properly educating. We're going out in the streets to find out what it's all about. And you know, that ain't good. Right. That's part of the problem. Yeah. Yeah. That's so we need to be honest. We need to talk about this, but we need to talk about it in a way that sex is more than just intercourse. Don't you want to have respect for yourself? Don't you want to be able to trust yourself? Don't you want to be able to know the person? Does that person have respect for me? Do I trust that person? What kind of honorable relationship we have? That's where, you know, but because a lot of times we don't have that in sex, is going out, hanging out the park, getting drunk, and then you don't even remember a person's name. And I'm not saying I'm beyond that. I came from that world. Right. I came from that world. So, you know, do we need to talk about this stuff? Yes, we need to start changing the culture. And our kids are the kids that can do this, because right now, technology is making it so much advanced. When we give our kids access to a cell phone without monitoring it, we just gave millions of people access to our kids. And my friend, whose son came home, Mom, was sex, is because a 7-year-old had a smartphone. I don't know why a 7-year-old needed a smartphone. It was showing porn in the school. That's wild. That's just wild. So parents, when you're going to have that conversation and prepare your kids, wouldn't you rather teach your kids about it than them learning in the streets? Right. Just like my wife says right there, having conversations about sex and also help kids recognize red flags and inappropriate behavior. Exactly.
Yeah.
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 And so we need to break those barriers that we grew up under and start re-educate ourselves. Really, again, parents, let's look at ourselves. Let's regroup ourselves and give our kids the best that we got. So we're not dealing with our crap. We ain't giving our kids the best.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we think it is. We're giving them emotions. We ain't giving them like real actions.
Yeah. Right. You're right. You're right. So, this is a whole workshop in itself. Just that topic.
Yeah, nah, it's true.
Really good. Really good. So, in your line of work, whether recently or have you ever personally, whether alone or just in a team, rescued somebody?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And like, I guess describe not necessarily in details, but like how were you able to rescue them?
So I'll tell you, and that's a good question because questofreedom.org, that's the, Quest of Freedom is the name of our organization. And I've come to the realization that I don't save people.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, a firefighter pull you out of a burning building, lifeguard stop, save you from drowning. But in these situations, I'm a resource. Can I rescue? Saving is up to you. If you don't think you have a problem, how can I save you from something that you don't even think you have a problem from, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've had cases where one of my most memorable one is I was out with some friends having dinner and I get a call from the national hotline. And there's a young lady that got on Google and Google, how does a girl get away from a pimp? She's 18 years old. And she's in a hotel, not by the airport, and I'm right downtown. The duty agent lived in Weston. So I responded, and fortunate for me at that time, my best friend, who was an FBI agent, was having dinner with us, and we got up from the table and we went to this hotel. And when we got to the hotel, I don't speak Spanish. I really needed to learn that, but my best friend did, and he's talking to security. He goes, yeah, two guys and a girl just got in the car and left. And I'm thinking like, man, we missed her. And so I'm on the phone. I'm like, hey, Polaris, the girl is gone. She says, no, she says she's still in the hotel waiting.
Wow.
So I go knock on the door. Did I just lose you?
No, I'm still here.
So I go knock on the door, and she's there. I pull out my gun. I stand to the side using my tactics, knock on the door. You're so-and-so? Yes. You're alone? Yes. Pulled her out, got her bag, pulled her out, wait till the duty agent come. And what happened to her? She had just turned 18. She lived in Sarasota. And her friends were like, her friend was like, hey, don't you want to go to Miami for your birthday? Yeah, let's go. So they go with her and this guy. They get to the hotel, and she says something was weird because the whole time that they were driving, the guy was like, don't you forget, I'm in charge, I'm in charge. She didn't know what that was about. They get to the hotel, and they start taking pictures of her, and she thinks she's just having fun. Posting the pictures on a page called Backpage back in the day. They're posting the pictures, and next thing you know, somebody's knocking on the door, and her friend's like, hey, girl, this dude is here. He wants to pay us to have sex. And she's like, what? I didn't come here for that. So she watched her friend have sex with the guy. So her friend, the guy, and the pimp left. And that was the two guys and the girl that left. Man. And, those things, man, I can tell you other stories of pulling people out of situations. I could tell you a story of these two Cuban women walk into a police department and say, help, we're being trafficked. And when we get the call, I was acting supervisor at the time. We get the call, we pull them in, we start interviewing them. And basically, someone had paid for them to come to the United States from Cuba, but go through the border. And they came through the border, and we're talking to them, and these women were really brave. Because once they got to the border, this guy met them, brought them down to Miami and go, okay, this is how you're going to be paying me money. Booby trap. They made them go work in booby trap and sell themselves. And they go, look, we're going to pay you back. That's like a debt bondage thing, by the way, when I talk about a form of trafficking. There was sex trafficking and debt bondage at the same time. And they were like, oh, we don't want to do that. We didn't come here for that, but we'll pay you. We'll work. whoop, and he made him. He took him down to the Everglades, beat the crap out of one of them, pistol whooped one of them really bad, hung her over the bridge of alligators, and said, if any of you guys ever, say anything back to me again, this is what's going to happen.
Wow.
And that's why I say those two women were brave to go into that police station. And when we're talking to them, they go, hey, there are 5 more in the house. And so we set up perimeters. We did our, investigation and made the call. And it was so awesome to see these women walk out that house, man, and never have to go back to that life. I mean, I know we're probably running on time, but I'll tell you the case that really got me into this is when I came back to Miami in 2005. I was assigned to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. I had my first human trafficking training in Botswana, Africa, at the International Law Enforcement Academy when I first heard the word modern day slavery. Speed that time up. I was there for a coordinator, but when I got back to the States, I was leaving the FBI, going back to Homeland, and I didn't even know the difference between human trafficking and human smuggling. And I get assigned to this human trafficking group where the guy is sat next to has got this case about 8 women that were trafficked from Mexico. At the end, it took 8 months for these women to finally admit that they were trafficked, and we had to hold them in a cell for material witnesses. And we realized that one of the women was part of the trafficking family that kept them in prison. So these guys were going to go to trial, but once the women all coming clean, they were like, all right, let's just plea and hope to get a minimum time. What got me to do this, and I knew I was going to be working in this for the rest of my life, is when I heard the story of this woman giving her impact statement to the judge. And she told the judge that they took her from the age of 14. And she was brought here. I don't know if you've ever been down to Homestead.
Yes.
And walked in those fields where those people are picking the vegetables and fruits that we eat. That's not a clean job. Those guys didn't go home, take a shower, put on cologne. They left those dirty fields and they went to a trailer where this woman was forced, and I ain't even gonna say have sex, where she was raped 15 to 25 times a day. And she's talking about it. This was the first time in her life that she could look at those men and say, what you did to me was wrong.
Wow.
They had impregnated her and took her baby and was holding her baby in Mexico. This was a trafficking family. And hearing her story, how she broke down and she, no, let me finish. And I just knew at that moment, bro, I was going to be working in this space for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And that's what got me. So, we're still rescuing. We're still responding. This is going on every day in our community. And if we don't get our craps together, how long is it going to be before somebody that we really know? Because we're getting there that we know somebody that knows somebody. How long is it going to be that somebody that I really love?
Wow, that's deep. That's deep. I appreciate your work. I appreciate it. And others that are also in that field. How do you deal with your mental health? Because you're in this field, there's just too much evil. Like, what do you do so you don't go crazy?
Well, I didn't for a long time. And when I did my work, that's what got me to be able to do this. Because, in law enforcement, we talk about second level or second degree trafficking, being in a position that you want to help, but you feel helpless because this victim is so trauma bond, what we call brainwashed, that she wants to run back to her trafficker. She doesn't know. She's so trauma bond that she find comfort instead of changing. She's been able to manage, or he's been able to manage in their mind that I'd rather take these beatings and be abused like this than to go to something I don't know. Wow. Right. And God, for years, I mean, you get worn out. I mean, people that I've worked with this, I started this in 2010, and people get burned out. People that I work with moved on, doing different things. And you know, that moment that I took that break and went to work for the Hawks, I was still working in it, but not every day, you know. It gave me that time to get away from it. It gave me that time to, but what really helped me is when I came back and did my own work.
Mm.
I had to go and deal with my traumas.
Right.
I grew up in the country. My mom had me at 12 years old. My mother was raped and had my mom. I was raised by my grandmother's mother, my great-grandmother. I dealt with alcoholism in my family, domestic violence, like trauma. You want to talk about trauma, bro? That needs to be a household name. This should be something we talk about all the time because we're not dealing with it. And we're just piling it on and on and on. So we wonder why the frontal brain of these kids shooting each other out in the streets have no respect, just have no respect for life. You know, we wonder why. We're not dealing with it. We're not going to the source. All we're doing is dealing with the aftermath. We're putting Band-Aids. We're trying to bring awareness, but at the same time, I want to go deep. Let's get to the source. And the source is us. It's everybody. Yeah. It ain't just their problem. It's their problem now, but if we don't start understanding it and dealing with it within ourselves and creating a culture that we're not, you know, that we're understanding it and branching out, how long is before that issue become our issue?
Right, right.
So it's all of us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. We all have to play a part. Right?
And we have to deal with our stuff. So when you ask me, how do I not go crazy? I have to have those methods. I wake up, you know, it's not every day, but the more I make this a routine, the healthier my mind is. The first thing I do is drink water. The second thing I do is meditate. I tell myself positive, 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 love, 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 whatever that meditation is. And then I take care of myself physically. I try to get a workout in, you know, that helps my mind stay, you know, and that's taking care of me. That's showing self-love, right? And educating myself in places where I need to know, knowing that I don't know nothing. You know, I'm not, people call me an expert. I call the people that have lived a victim's life in that space the expert. So that's when we use survivors, maybe to, you know, speak for us or whatever. I pay them. Because there's been a world, I've seen it, you know, I've grown in this spot. And when I first started in this, all these nonprofits, hey, come speak to this crowd, tell them your story, without checking to see if they're ready, without checking to see if they've healed enough. Because every time they have to tell that story, it's traumatizing. Right. And then you pay them for it. And then I collect a lot of money and go, thank you.
Right.
Wow. We have to be, we mean well sometimes, but we got to be careful that we're not causing further harm when we work in this space.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. So I have two questions before we go into our quick bonus questions. What advice would you give to parents that have kids with electronics devices?
Well, outside of parents deal with your stuff, I would say if you're paying for it, monitor it. Start off when once your kid get to an age that you believe that they can have a phone, start off with good techniques. All right. At night, the phone don't go in your bedroom because a lot of kids ain't getting good sleep because they're up all night online. You know, start good habits. You're not allowed to go. Let them know I'm monitoring everything, who you're talking to. Because at a certain age, I don't think they should have access to the internet. I think all you need is that phone so you can text, call mom and dad, let me know where you are. You know, that's it. You don't need to have access to the internet. Right. And when you do, okay, let me let you in for school, whatever, and I'm monitoring everything. So start good habits. Just don't give the phone to the kid and let them go. Let them know that you're looking. And kids are smart. They're going to be trying to find ways around it, right? And let them know if they're putting stuff on that phone, they lose the phone. Because you try to take a phone from a teenager now that have not started with good ground rules, it's like you just killed them. They'll run away from home. They feel like you beat them to death.
Right.
You ain't taking my phone. You paying for the phone, right? You ain't paying for the phone. You know what I mean? So start good habits. If you give your kid a phone, start those rules so you ain't dealing with it in the future.
Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. And for those that are watching and they see my shirt that I have on, it says start talking about online safety. In the back of my shirt, it says it has the number 46, and 46 is the number based on statistics in 2019. I hope that number increased now. In 2019, parents only spent about average 46 minutes talking to their kids about online safety. 46 minutes. That's nothing, so we need to get more involved. And I understand that there are some older parents that don't know, how to deal with it, but we live in a generation where we have parents who are younger, so they have access, they know what it is. So we need to educate them, and they need to do the work as well. So
Well,
online safety is
I'm,
very
I'm, I'm gonna give you some. God, I wish I'd have known that question. I would have got that information. But I'm gonna give you 46 minutes of talking. Let's talk about how many hours. So they did a study of how many hours a family really sit down and have family time or doing activities. Was like really crazy, like in a week. And I know these numbers are off,
yeah.
but in that week, those hours were hundreds of times less than what kids are spending on social media. I forget, was it a month or was it a week? It was like 10 hours a month, but 50, 100, 50,000 hours online. I mean, it was astronomical, hours we're spending communicating and hours that they spend online on social media.
Right.
I'll find those numbers for you and text them to you to share, with your your audience later. It's crazy, dude.
Wow. Yeah.
So that 46 minutes mean nothing compared to all day.
Exactly.
So I ain't talking to you about online safety, just spending family time. How was your day? What did you learn? What excited you today? What was it bad? Just family, that kind of stuff,
Right. Yeah. Right. So, how can we, or people, they would like to know more information? How can we support the work that you're doing?
Well, I tell people questofreedom.org, QUEST.
I have it as .com there. My bad.
It's .org and or Q2F.org. There's information there. The three things that we do, like I said, I try to educate at the level we've had this conversation today that I hope I felt like it resonated with you. I hope that it resonated with your audience. So it's about the education. We are trying to raise money. And I'll be honest, I had this conversation with my friend. I probably need more. And I'm like, I need a minimum of 150,000 to make sure that when we register with the national hotline, we have everything in play to be able to make that commitment to fill those gaps.
Right.
He was telling me that's not enough money. I'm saying, I think that's enough just to get us registered, right? So, and then, partnership, I'll come to your church, I'll come to your school, I'll come anywhere. I don't want people to have to pay for what I do. But if you got a grant for training, pay me, please. But if you don't, I want to be able to do this and share this passion and make a difference. If I reach one person in your audience that takes this information, because I've seen it done before, just from a presentation, a doctor, a university medical student got a $25,000 ARSH grant. Wow. We trained 600 first responders. And while she was going through the process, her advisors, Dr. Potter, who is a medical nursing doctor for the University of Miami, was asking questions. Where do these people go for medical treatment? And started the first clinic specifically for human trafficking victims in this country, the Thrive Clinic, that's still going today, right? So I know if I'm reaching one person that really this feeds somebody to take action, and that action can be anything. A lot of people don't know January is Human Trafficking Awareness. You know, I'm trying to make a connection to the NBA that like have the NBA be that first professional sport that really take on human trafficking with the NBA Cares program. Make human trafficking that you know, NFL only does it during Super Bowl, that they connect with the community, that we're in the community. But imagine if the NFL did one of those commercials out of all the millions of people watching going, hey people, be aware of human trafficking. To find out more, go to NFL.com, and whoever they match up with to get that information, let them give the information. You know, this is the #1 crime in the world. And we all know somebody that's dealing with it and don't know it. Because I'm telling the labor check, we know somebody that's here undocumented. I'm almost certain some people are being, you know, trafficked in some ways that they don't even know that they are. They're just happy to have a job. They don't care that you're taking the money. They don't care that they're working these extra hours. They don't care that they're being abused. They may care, but they're just hoping like, I'm just happy to be in the United States. And, you know, I mean, it's a lot, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean,
and we all can do something about it. Just continue that. Don't let this be the last time you educate yourself about this. Keep educating yourself. I've been in it for 14 years, still learning.
Wow. Yeah, just the other day I was and like I mentioned earlier, or I don't know if it was during the live or before we got that, this been a topic that's been, I guess, been tugging me more into that world, and you know, educated and bringing awareness, posting stuff online and whatnot. And the other day I just saw a video from Tim Tebow. I don't know if you saw it or heard
Yeah.
A court hearing, and you know, he was explaining about his organization, and I love how he broke it down. You know how, you know, most people know me as, you know, Tim Tebow, as who got cut from many teams, you know, and I was chasing the dreams of MVP, but now the dream that the MVP that I'm chasing is the most vulnerable people, you know. So throughout that whole video, like it was 10:30 at night, no live, bro. I had trouble sleeping for almost 2 hours. Like I just had, my eyes were watery. I just couldn't sleep. I was uncomfortable. And on top of that, and I posted this the other day, that because I do Uber, you know, I do pick up a lot of different people. I pick up girls from a strip club, girls from clubs in general, or coming from some guy's house. And obviously they're going into a stranger's car. They don't know who I am. But in my mind, as much as I don't want to be driving at 4 a.m. because I want to be sleeping and not spending all that car maintenance, but when these women or young college girls get in my car, I feel happy because I know they don't know, but I know that they're safe. They're gonna be safe in my car. Whether we have a conversation or not, they're gonna feel safe, because the amount of time that I hear them crying on the phone, or they had a bad night, they coming from this, like literally this girl, a college girl, came in my car the other day. It was by Sunny Isles Beach, close to it. And she was furious, talking on the phone, and she was like, listen, I'm so happy I left this guy's house, because if I would have stayed longer, he probably would have raped me. This is a young college girl. My heart was beating, you know, because I was like, man, this is serious. But I was also happy because she was safe. Now, she didn't know how safe she was going to be in my car, because she don't know who I am. But in my mind, I'm like, she's safe. I get to take her where she needs to go. You know, so I get those type of drivers all the time. So I couldn't sleep that night. It was rough.
There's stories about Uber's supposed to be training Uber drivers about this. I don't know if you ever got trained. They say they are, but they supposed to. And if you can make some type of connections, we'll make sure they get it. But there have been some Uber people. There's this story about an Uber guy that these two women get in a car, because there are women that traffic other women. And this young girl, she looked like she was 12. And they were listening to the conversation and said, all right, girl, when you get to apartment 12B, because he already got the address, you get the money first, and then you take off his clothes. And they're telling this young girl that. So when he dropped the girl off, he called the police. And so he knew the apartment to go to. Turned out she was a missing child.
Wow.
So nobody gets out of learning about this.
Right.
The post office, they should be, do I have bars outside the window or bars inside? The window is keeping people in. What's up with that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all these little things that we could learn to understand that it's all around us, right?
Right.
So the question is, one of the things I'll give to you, what are you going to do when that one gets in the car and you know they've been trafficked? What have you been planning? What's your plan? We have 1 in 3 women in America that's sexually assaulted, but that's not the reporting.
Yeah.
Another cultural thing we got to change. Victim blaming. Why you in that dress? Why you get drunk? Why you out of it? Come on, people. Stop. We're creating a world that women are afraid to come forward when someone rapes them.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
We got to stop this crap.
Yeah.
This is America. We got some issues.
I agree.
But this is worldwide. And you got to, before we started this show, you introduced me to your handsome young son. I know you're going to educate that young man to be a man of respect and honor. We need more men teaching our young men that women aren't for sale.
Mm-hmm.
We need more men to know respect, but they can't give respect if they don't have it.
Exactly.
And then our music, all we hear is about disrespecting women, listening to it and being okay to be disrespected.
Right.
And I challenge any rapper who thinks he's all that. All right, we know our community is bad. We know all the bad stuff. How about rapping some inspirational, good messages gonna give our community a different perspective?
Right.
Life. We're victimizing them. And then gonna get mad because someone challenged you. I mean, come on, guys. You're making millions off of victimizing your own people and be the first one out there talking about black this, black. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing to add positivity, to make the country better, other than telling us how bad the community is? You already know that.
Exactly. And the social media plays a big part. Everybody wants to stand behind the screen and always post about this and that, but what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're complaining all day on social media, but you're not doing any type of work. You're not leaving. You're not being involved in the community. You're not educating yourself so others can know. But you're just behind the screen complaining.
And then complaining that when people are doing stuff, it may not be. You can't address every issue in the world, but you pick the places where you feel like you can do the work. And then they bring up, well, why you ain't doing this? Well, what are you doing? Don't be worrying about what I'm doing. What are you doing?
Right.
I mean, and again, people are trying, and we have to educate ourselves to make sure we're not doing more harm. But, if you're out there trying to educate, I mean, just your show alone, you're trying to give information to people that's going to help warn them about something, give them a different perspective to make the world and their environment better.
Right. Yeah. Woo! This is good. I'm so happy that I had you on, and I know this is not the last time we can connect, because I do want to get, I do want to continue getting more educated as I do my own research, or connection with you and other people, getting more involved as much as I can and whatnot, because it's needed. So we're gonna go to the 3 quick bonus questions, just to make everything a little lighter. Fun bonus questions. You can answer it in less than 10 seconds. No explanation of the answer. Just tell me the answer. So the first one is 3 of them. The first one is, would you rather have, for the 24 hours of your life, 7 days a week, would you rather have smelly feet or bad breath for the rest of your life?
Wow. Smelly feet. Because I can hide that. You see, I like to talk. I can't hide the bad breath. So I'll take the smelly feet. I can keep the shoes on.
Okay, the second one. Would you rather have full control of all the internet in the world, or have full control of all kinds of animals in the world?
I'll take the internet for sure.
Okay. Okay. And then the last one. I like this one. Would you rather be stuck in a romantic comedy with your worst enemy or in a horror movie with your best friend?
Wow. I'm single. I'm going with the romantic movie because I might find love. Hard. You're my best friend. I'm going with the romantic out of the search for love. I've been single a long time, so Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, awesome. Well, Victor, I appreciate you coming and sharing all the information. I know that we have a lot more to talk about, or more information, and then within just an hour and a half show. But for everybody else that's watching, please share this to your family, share this to your friends, social media, like it. That way, it can algorithm, the engagement, and all that kind of stuff. And you also educate yourself. Now you have no excuse of I don't know what human sex trafficking is, or I don't know what trafficking in general is. You have at least a little bit of information. I hope that sparks some type of interest. Maybe not, maybe on the same level as Victor or as me, but we all play a part in to spread this awareness because this world, unfortunately, in many areas, is evil, and people are evil when it comes to stuff like this.
And can I ask one quick thing? And please tell people whether you donate or not, go to Quest of Freedom. There's a lot of information there. Share it with the friends. Hopefully that some of your friends will donate because what we do here is our passion, it's our purpose. And every dollar counts, man. It helps us help people. I've poured a lot of my personal money in there, which I don't complain about it because if I don't believe in myself, who will? Mm-hmm. So, but we need the support of the community, whether it's just spreading the word about it or donating. Right. Or, there's going to be a time we're going to ask for volunteers, Mm-hmm. So stay tuned with us, work with us, connect us with other organizations, because again, nobody does this alone. Right. So I really appreciate you having me here. I respect who you are as a human being and a man. And, we've been in a couple things and fortunate, like for you, we always coming together in good space. Mm-hmm. I look forward to seeing you again at the Barber Speak. We're sharing good information. We're making ourselves vulnerable to brothers to say, hey, you're not alone in this pain or in this thought, giving our hearts. Right. And we need more of that community stuff, bro. We need more people coming together to support each other. Mm-hmm. And give them that support that it's okay to not be okay, that it's okay to get all this macho respect stuff. It's okay to stand up for the right. It's never wrong. It's never too late to do things right. So thank you for this opportunity to just have this conversation and look forward to doing it again.
Appreciate it. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next week. I have another interview speaking about the financial world and all that kind of stuff. So be safe, have a good night, and be easy.